of the minority leader, Mr. McCarthy, and after we went back and conveyed our agreement to the GOP proposal, it was vetoed by the fourth branch of government. I'm not yielding now. It was vetoed by the cult leader, Donald Trump, who said he wanted no investigation at all. That's your guy. Donald Trump, he said he wanted no investigation. And so you pulled the plug on the investigation you originally advocated because Donald Trump didn't want it. Let's tell some truth.
Would you like?
You're talking about truth and facts. I'm giving you the truth. I'm giving you the facts about it. And then when Speaker Pelosi said, well, in that case, the House of Representatives will conduct our own investigation, then again, you guys boycotted it because you wanted to put pro-insurrection members on the committee. And so we ended up with a bipartisan committee of people really interested in getting to the facts. And you know what? This is what you guys can't stand. America listened to it because we had real congressional hearings. Unlike what goes on here with the temper tantrums and the diatribes, and too often our side gets pulled into what you guys are doing, but we had real hearings. And 25, 30 million Americans watching because we told the truth about Donald Trump's assault on democratic institutions and the right to vote in America. And maybe you can't handle the truth, but that's the reality, and nobody has laid a glove on any of the testimony that has come out during those hearings. So we hear this absurd whining about Ray Epps, who has absolutely nothing to do with any of it, and all of these conspiracy theory allegations have been debunked up and down. Up and down. You think you've got something? You bring him in and talk to him or send us a letter or do something. But why don't you deal with the reality of the situation? Do you think that Donald Trump tried to get the Secretary of State of Georgia, a lifelong Republican named Raffensperger, to just find him 11,781 votes? Is that real or is that fake? You interested in facts? Is that real or is that fake? And what he didn't, and for that he's been made into a sacrificial lamb, and the entire conspiracy, which certainly lies a lot more with Donald Trump and his inner circle than with one guy who showed up at Donald Trump's urging, is now being blamed on him in this desperate attempt to distract everybody from what really happened. But here's the thing that gets me about that, which is the way that the right wing in America devours its own. I mean, I have watched Donald Trump utterly destroy the lives of people around him, people who went to work for him, people like Michael Cohen, people like Cassidy Hutchinson. Look what they're doing to Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. He hung his own vice president out to dry. The mob was after Mike Pence to assassinate him, to hang Mike Pence. They had a gallows and a noose outside. They unleashed him. They unleashed the mob on Mike Pence, and then Donald Trump sends out another tweet after he knows Pence is in danger to say Mike Pence did not have the courage to do what needed to be done. I mean, how far does this have to go before you people wake up? And now they pick this poor guy Epps out of nowhere and say, let's blame the entire thing on this guy.
Well, did gentlemen
it's the most absurd thing I've ever seen in my life.
Quick question.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Epps was in front of the January 6th committee, and we were told that a transcript of his interview would be released, but it's never been released. And I wondered, was he sworn
None
in?
of the transcripts have been released, so you don't need a conspiracy theory about that. We haven't released any of them.
Were you present when he was interviewed? That would give me some...
No, I was not. I was not. We've done more than 1,000 interviews. You guys are trying to make this poor schmuck who showed up to your protest into something a lot bigger than he is. Okay, he's just trying to survive, and he's on your side. You don't have many voters left. You might want to try to hang on to them without demonizing and vilifying your own people. But that's the Donald Trump way. Sell everybody else down the road. Unless you're going to get a pardon. Some people are still hanging around waiting for their pardon. But most people have opened their eyes about what he's done to our country. What he's done to his family. Have you guys ever read the book by Mary Trump about the way that Donald Trump has absolutely destroyed their family, wrecked her father's life? They do it to family, they do it to friends, they do it to their own associates and employees. And now you guys are doing it to this poor Ray Epps. Leave that guy alone, whoever he is.
This is Jamie Raskin saying it better than quite literally anyone could, and he's apparently pretty over the avalanche of bullshit spewed on a constant basis by Republicans. Now, I do want to expand on one point, and that is this conspiracy theory about Ray Epps, because I'm sure you've heard that name floating around the right-wing sphere in the same way that those people love to cling on to obscure figures and make them the root of all things evil. Now, first of all, Ray Epps is a Republican. He attended the January 6th rally at the Ellipse. He even urged people to go to the Capitol. He was, for all intents and purposes, one of exactly the kinds of people who you would think Republicans would advocate for. After all, he bought the bullshit that they were selling. In that way, he was one of their favorite customers. But the problem came when Republicans needed to explain away their involvement in the January 6th insurrection. And so first they tried to claim that it was Antifa that had breached the Capitol, which was a lie so ridiculous that even those purveyors of disinformation on the right had to abandon it. Then they decided to stick with the tried and true excuse that was the old deep state, and so they blamed the FBI. But that was still just a bit too nebulous. They needed a person, someone who they could individually sacrifice to make their ill-defined conspiracy theory seem more realistic. And so they landed on this guy, Ray Epps, who, according to the New York Times, became the target of selectively edited videos painting him as a secret federal asset in charge of a breach team responsible for setting off the riot at the Capitol. And so, of course, because he, as a purported federal asset, was responsible for setting the spark that incited the insurrection, he too was individually responsible for everything that followed on that day. All of those thousands of Trump supporters who stormed the seat of government looking to assassinate federal officials clearly weren't acting on their own volition. They were merely the instruments of this one brilliant mastermind who caused them to act that way. And these stories went from obscure right-wing news outlets right on over to Fox News, because there's about as much scrutiny on their news stories as Matt Gaetz gives to girls' birth years on their driver's licenses. And then those conspiracy theories were amplified further by literal members of Congress like Ted Cruz and Thomas Massie, and of course, Donald Trump, which is to say, exactly the people who you'd think would amplify this type of offensively false and blatant disinformation. And that's what's so insidious and pathetic at the same time. The movement that Republicans and this whole MAGA base have built not only doesn't help any of these people, it actually devours them. And it's not just the schmucks sitting in their living rooms mainlining Tucker Carlson. Even at the highest ranks of the Republican Party, consider how many of Trump's own lawyers have either gone to prison, been disbarred, or are being investigated. Think about the 34 indictments handed down as part of Robert Mueller's investigation. Think about the leaders of these far-right militias now contending with seditious conspiracy charges. Steve Bannon just turned himself into law enforcement. Everything Donald Trump and his movement touches dies. And the only thing more pathetic than these people having their lives turned upside down on his behalf are the people who see that and yet still continue to coddle him, somehow thinking that they'll be different, that he truly cares about them. Here's a hint. Unless your name is Donald Trump, he does not give one single shit what happens to you. So look, these people will continue to flock to his side because that's what a cult of personality is. These are people who give unlimited fealty to someone who they perceive as their deity, even if they get nothing in return. Less than nothing, in fact, given that they're actually continuously subjected to legal jeopardy as a result of their allegiance to this stalwart of corruption and criminality. If someone like Ray Epps, some random dude who got suckered into believing the bullshit that he was supposed to believe from his own team, if he could become the boogeyman for these same people who manipulated him, then it can happen to anyone. There is no loyalty except to one person, and even then, it only goes one way. And if it wasn't a cult, these people would have a lot easier time recognizing that. Before you go, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. You can click the thumbnail right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work even further, the best way is to subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. There you can check out my interviews with major players in the world of politics, including President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, Jamie Raskin, and so many more. Plus other interviews that live exclusively on the podcast. That link is also right here on this screen, or just search No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen wherever you listen to podcasts.